Update. At Dad's while reading, they laughed at me, then my son revealed a secret that made everyone go silent. A soft chuckle came from the left side of the table. It was Edward, my cousin, the one who once built sand castles with me on Cape Cod when I was 10. Now laughing like I was the family's running joke. Still think you have a chance? He muttered, just loud enough for Lily to hear. She turned to me, her little face suddenly steely. It wasn't fear I saw, it was disappointment, not in me, but in the world she was beginning to see more clearly. Lily, I whispered gently, brushing her hair. It's okay. Just stay with me, all right? She nodded, lips pressed tightly. She was stronger than her 8 years, and I knew if there was any reason I hadn't fallen apart in front of those eyes, it was because of her. At the head of the table, Mr. Donald tapped his pen lightly against the folder. His calm voice filled the room. If everyone is ready, I'd like to begin. Everyone straightened up. Meredith folded her hands, like she was ready for a victory speech. Uncle Martin leaned back, eyes narrowed, like reading between the lines. Aunt Celia pulled a handkerchief from her purse, as if bracing for some emotional crescendo. And me, I just held Lily's hand, because I knew my name wouldn't be in the opening lines, but like every room that once turned its back on me, I had learned to walk in, head held high, and wait, to see who feared the truth more than I ever did. I used to think that if I stayed silent long enough, the whispers behind my back would fade away. But as the years passed, they only grew louder, clinging to me like smoke that refused to clear. My family never cared why I left. They already had a story. I was the daughter who didn't know sacrifice, the one who abandoned her father when he needed her most, the selfish sister who ran away from family duty. That story, crafted by Meredith, amplified by Uncle Martin, gradually became the unchallenged truth. No one bothered to question. They didn't know or didn't want to know that I once came back. 3 months after leaving my husband, I brought Lily to my father's door, carrying her in one arm, a single suitcase in the other. I remember it was drizzling that day, not enough to soak my hair, but enough to chill the air. I knocked, hoping that no matter how angry he was, my father would still open the door. He used to say family is the last place that won't shut its doors on you. But that day, he did. The old oak door closed cold and silent, like a period at the end of a sentence. I stood under the porch for nearly 2 hours. Lily was 6 months old, crying non-stop from hunger and cold. It was my father's neighbor, Mrs. Graham, who finally came out, pressed an umbrella and a business card for a single mother center into my hand. I walked away as darkness fell, without looking back. From that day forward, I understood that if I wanted to survive, I had to learn how to no longer need anyone. From that house, I rented a small apartment in the suburbs of New York. My first job was a night shift cashier at a convenience store. Then I slowly moved into part-time bookkeeping for an insurance company. Everything was slow but peaceful. I did everything I could for Lily, from mending torn sweaters to saving every spare coin to buy her books. Our life wasn't glamorous, but at least it didn't include accusations or contemptuous stares. Sometimes on quiet nights, I still thought about my father, not out of anger but because I still hoped that maybe he had come to understand something, or at least wondered why I had left. He was the only one who ever taught me how to untangle a fishing line, how to arrange lilies so they wouldn't wilt. He was the only one who ever truly listened when I said I wanted to study interior design instead of accounting. But after I married someone he disapproved of, a free, spirited artist, emotional and impulsive, it all collapsed. He didn't like who I chose, but what he never understood was that I chose to break free from a family where emotions had to be polished before being presented. After that marriage, when the man who once painted me pictures turned into the man who yelled at me daily, I knew I had to stop. But when I came back with our daughter, my father, only one person knew the whole story, Mr. Donald, our longtime family lawyer. Last year, when he called to verify some documents related to a scholarship fund, I asked him directly, did my father ever mention me? He hesitated, then said softly, I believe he was still following your path. That answer didn't erase the years I'd been shut out, but it was enough to keep a flicker of hope alive that maybe somewhere deep down, a part of the old father still remained. And maybe that's why I came to the will reading today, not for the inheritance, not to fight for anything, but to see if in his final moment, he left something, not the house, not the retirement fund, but a line, a message, something to prove I was never completely forgotten. I scanned the room, taking in all the expectant faces. They thought I'd shown up to plead for something, but what they didn't realize was that the one thing I truly desired was something money couldn't purchase, the truth. And I had this gut feeling that, one way or another, that truth was within arm's reach. Mr. Donald set the folder down on the table. His eyes sweeping the room as if weighing the air. The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft rustle of pages. Between the tension, I could hear every heartbeat in my chest, steady but fragile, as if one deep breath could shatter everything. The last will and testament of Mr. Harold Jefferson, he began, his voice deep but steady, like someone who'd read hundreds of wills but still respected every word. Meredith leaned forward slightly, hands neatly folded, eyes gleaming with triumph. Next to her, her husband, Brandon, pulled out his phone under the table, probably texting the architect they'd spoken with last week. They had already been planning renovations to the main house before our father even passed. I, Harold Jefferson, Mr. Donald continued, being of sound mind and judgment, do hereby divide my estate as follows. I heard the words, but they felt distant. Each sentence hammered deeper into the reality I had suspected. My name was not there. To my eldest daughter, Meredith Jefferson, I leave the entire main house and the adjoining property, along with all furnishings and valuables contained within. Meredith raised an eyebrow, saying nothing, but I saw the subtle curve of her lips, a silent but unmistakable victory. To my brother, Mr. Martin Jefferson, Mr. Donald went on, I leave the lakeside property, including ownership of the cabin and the fishing boat. Uncle Martin nodded, his expression unchanged, but I knew he was pleased. He loved that lake more than anything except control. To my nephew, Edward, Mr. Donald paused to flip a page. I leave the vintage car collection, along with all titles and related accessories. I looked at Edward, my cousin, who hadn't even looked at me at the funeral. Now he stroked his chin, nodding like it had all been predetermined. I said nothing, but each word, each sentence, was confirming what I had braced myself for. I had no place in this will, not even a line, not a note, not a goodbye. And then the line came, like a clean cut, slicing through what little hope remained. And, as previously stated, Mr. Donald slowed his reading. My youngest daughter, Karen Jefferson, shall receive no portion of this estate. The room went dead quiet. No one spoke right away, but a heartbeat later, Meredith let out a soft snort of laughter. Told you, she whispered to Brandon, but loud enough for me to hear. Uncle Martin shook his head, casting a look of mock pity toward me. Takes a special kind of person to turn their back on their own father, he said with that half-joking tone he always used when speaking of me, like I was some side note unworthy of discussion. Lily sat beside me, not fully grasping the words, but feeling the heavy silence all around. She turned and whispered softly, "Mom." I gripped her hand tighter, holding back the emotion. I had known this was coming. I had played this scene out in my head 100 times. But nothing prepares you for seeing your name officially erased from your father's life in front of your entire family without feeling something fracture. I took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the wood grain of the table, where the light struck in almost hypnotic swirls. Around me, murmurs began. Meredith was saying something to Brandon about starting basement renovations early. Edward was already on the phone. I caught snippets like "move the cars into the garage this weekend." No one spoke to me. No one asked what I was thinking. They had ended this long ago. I was just the late arrival to a play that had closed years before. But what they didn't know was this: I hadn't come to claim anything. I came to listen, to confirm, and if needed, to close the last unfinished chapter in my heart. I didn't need the house. I didn't need the things. What I needed was the truth. I hadn't yet decided whether to get up or quietly wait for everyone to leave when Lily suddenly turned to Mr. Donald. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't rushed, but clear enough to freeze the entire room. "You forgot the video he recorded." Everyone turned: Meredith, Uncle Martin, Edward, Brandon and his wife. Even Mr. Donald furrowed his brows. I looked at my daughter, my palm suddenly cold. I whispered, almost breathless, "Lily, what are you talking about?" She didn't look at me. Lily's eyes stayed on Mr. Donald, calm and direct, strangely composed for an 8-year-old. She reached into her small backpack, pulled out a slightly wrinkled white envelope, sealed carefully with brown tape. On it, in familiar bold letters, "For Mr. Donald only if it gets ugly." I nearly choked. I recognized that handwriting instantly. It was my father's. "Lily,